The story you're about to hear will shake you. It's about a girl the world called worthless, until the most powerful man alive fell to his knees before her. This is a tale of hidden magic, brutal rejection, and a love so fierce it could burn kingdoms to ash. Let's dive into The Runt Queen. The cold bit through Aeliana's thin dress as she knelt on the stone floor of the packhouse kitchen, scrubbing dried blood from the tiles. Her knees ached. Her fingers were raw and cracked from the lye soap. Above her, she could hear the thunder of footsteps, the roar of laughter, the clash of goblets as the Bloodfang pack celebrated inside the great hall. She wasn't invited. She was never invited. 21 years old, and Aeliana had never once sat at the long tables where warriors feasted. Had never worn the ceremonial silks during moon festivals. Had never felt the rush of transformation that every other wolf experienced by their 16th birthday. Because Aeliana had no wolf. No shift. No claws. No glowing eyes when the full moon rose fat and silver over the mountains. Just a fragile human body that bruised too easily and a heartbeat that stuttered with exhaustion every night when she finally collapsed onto the pile of grain sacks in the storage shed she called home. Runt. That's what they called her. Sometimes they didn't bother with a name at all. The sound of shattering glass made her flinch. Someone had thrown a goblet against the wall upstairs. More laughter followed. Cruel and sharp. Aeliana kept scrubbing. She had learned long ago not to react. Not to cry where they could see. Tears only made it worse. Tears made them creative. Her stomach twisted with hunger. She hadn't eaten since yesterday morning when she'd stolen half a stale roll from the kitchen before anyone woke. Tonight there would be nothing. The pack was hosting someone important, which meant every scrap of food was accounted for. Every plate monitored. If she tried to take even a bite, Beta Garon would make her regret it. Last time, he'd made her stand in the training yard for 6 hours holding a bucket of stones above her head while warriors practiced their drills around her. Her arms had gone numb. Then they'd caught fire with pain. Then numb again. No one had helped her. No one ever did. The memory of 3 nights ago crashed over her like ice water, and Aeliana's hand stilled on the brush. The moon bond ceremony. She'd felt it the moment Torin walked into the circle of stones. The pull. The recognition. The way her entire body had turned toward him like a flower seeking sun. Fated mates. The rarest, most sacred gift the moon goddess could give. Torin was a scout. Low-ranking, but respected. Strong. Handsome in a rough way, with amber eyes and a crooked smile she'd caught herself dreaming about more than once. When his gaze found hers across the ceremony ground, Aeliana's heart had soared. Finally, someone would see her. Want her. Choose her. Torin had walked toward her slowly. The entire pack had gone silent, watching. Waiting. He'd stopped 3 feet away. Close enough that she could smell pine and leather on his skin. Close enough to see the coldness spreading across his face like frost. Then he'd spoken. Loud enough for everyone to hear. I reject you, Aeliana of no bloodline. I won't tie my future to something that isn't even a wolf. I won't let you drag me down. The bond had snapped. She'd felt it die inside her chest. A star going cold. A flower crushed beneath a boot. No one had comforted her when she'd fallen to her knees in the dirt. No one had protested when Torin turned his back and walked away. The ceremony had simply continued around her like she was a stone in a river. Irrelevant. Invisible. Just like always. Aeliana blinked hard and returned to scrubbing. The blood was old. Stubborn. It had seeped into the grout between stones. Upstairs, the noise reached a new pitch. Someone shouted for silence. The entire packhouse seemed to hold its breath. Then she heard it. Footsteps. Heavy. Measured. Moving through the hall above with the weight of absolute authority. And the scent hit her. Even through the floors, even through the thick door separating the kitchen from the rest of the packhouse, Aeliana smelled it. Pine and winter frost. Steel and smoke. Something wild and ancient that made every instinct she didn't know she had stand at attention. Her hands trembled. The brush slipped from her fingers and clattered against the stone. What was that? Why did her skin feel too tight suddenly? Why was her pulse racing like she'd run for miles? The door at the top of the kitchen stairs banged open. "Move, Runt." Beta Garen's voice cracked like a whip. "You're serving tonight." Aeliana's head snapped up. Serving. But she was never allowed. Now. She scrambled to her feet, her dress soaked and clinging to her legs. Her hands were still covered in soap and blood. Her hair was falling out of its braid in filthy tangles. "I need to change," she started. Garon descended 3 steps, his eyes flashing gold. His wolf was close to the surface. Angry. "You'll serve as you are. The Alpha King doesn't care what a servant looks like. Now move before I drag you up there myself." Alpha King. The words hit her like a fist. Deva of the White Crest Dominion was here. In this pack house. Right now. The most powerful shifter alive. The warlord who'd united 6 territories under his rule. The male other alphas feared to even look at directly. And she was supposed to serve him looking like she'd crawled out of a gutter. Aeliana climbed the stairs on shaking legs, each step feeling like walking toward an execution. Her bare feet left wet prints on the stone. Her heart hammered so hard she thought it might crack her ribs from the inside. Beta Garon shoved a heavy tray into her hands the moment she reached the top. Crystal goblets filled with dark wine sloshed dangerously close to the rim. The tray was silver, ornate, probably worth more than her entire existence. "Don't drop it. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't look anyone in the eye." Garen's lip curled in disgust as he looked her over. "And for the love of the goddess, try not to embarrass us more than you already do just by breathing." He turned and walked away before she could respond. Not that she would have. What was there to say? Aeliana adjusted her grip on the tray and moved toward the great hall. The double doors were cracked open, spilling golden light and the rumble of conversation into the dim corridor. She could see them through the gap. The pack's elite. Alpha Rendell sat at the head of the massive oak table, his silver hair gleaming in the candlelight. His daughter Saskia sat to his right, draped in midnight blue silk that probably cost more than feeding the entire pack for a month. Her neck dripped with sapphires. Her lips were painted the color of fresh blood. Saskia was beautiful. Everyone said so. Strong wolf. Pure bloodline. Elegant and educated, and everything an Alpha King would want in a queen. She sat with her spine straight and her chin high, her eyes fixed on something, someone Aeliana couldn't quite see from this angle. The other high-ranking females were arranged down the table like jewels on display. Each one more stunning than the last. Each one watching. Waiting. Competing. Because everyone knew why the Alpha King had come. He was choosing a bride. And every female in this room believed she had a chance. Aeliana's stomach turned. She didn't belong here. Not in this hall with these people. Not serving an Alpha King like she was anything other than the pack's greatest shame. But she didn't have a choice. She never had a choice. Taking a breath that did nothing to steady her nerves, Aeliana pushed through the door. The hall fell silent so fast it was like someone had cut all their throats at once. Every eye turned to her. Every nose caught her scent. Unwashed. Low-born. Wolfless. Saskia's perfect face twisted with contempt. One of the warriors actually laughed, the sound cruel and sharp. "Look what crawled out of the basement," someone muttered. Did Garon actually send the runt to serve the king? This is humiliating. Aeliana kept her head down and moved along the edge of the hall, trying to be invisible. Trying to just get through this without incident. Her hands were white-knuckled on the tray. Wine sloshed. A drop hit the floor. Her eyes stung but she refused to let tears fall. Not here. Not now. She was halfway to the table when she finally saw him. Alpha King Deva sat in the seat of honor to Alpha Rendell's left, and the sight of him drove every thought from Aeliana's head. He was massive. Broad shoulders that seemed to take up twice the space of a normal man. Arms corded with muscle that his fine black shirt did nothing to hide. His hair was dark as midnight, pulled back from a face that looked like it had been carved from granite by an angry god. But it was his eyes that stopped her heart. Pale silver. Almost white. The color of moonlight on snow. And they were staring directly at her. Aeliana froze mid-step. The tray trembled in her hands. She couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Those eyes pinned her in place like she was prey caught in the gaze of a wolf 10 times her size. No. Not like prey. Like something else. Something she didn't have a name for. The Alpha King had gone completely still. His goblet hung forgotten in one hand. His entire body was coiled tight, every muscle locked. The wolf inside him, the beast that made other alphas submit without a word, had gone utterly silent. Then it moved. Aeliana felt it even though she couldn't see it. Felt the massive presence of his wolf rise up inside him and turn its full attention on her like the beam of a lighthouse swinging through darkness. And then it did something that made the air in the room turn to ice. It bowed. Not to Alpha Rendell. Not to the decorated warriors or the daughters of noble bloodlines draped in silk and jewels. To her. The Alpha King's chair scraped against stone as he stood. Slowly. His eyes never left her face. Around the table, wolves shifted nervously. Alpha Rendell's smile had frozen in place, confusion flickering across his features. Your Majesty, is something wrong? Rendell began. David didn't answer. He moved around the table with the fluid grace of a predator, each step measured and deliberate. Heading straight for Aeliana. Oh goddess. Oh no. What did I do? What's happening? Aeliana wanted to run. Wanted to drop the tray and flee back down to the kitchen and hide in the storage shed until this nightmare ended. But her legs wouldn't move. Her body had locked up completely, every instinct screaming at her to stay still. To not move. To not even breathe wrong. The Alpha King stopped 3 feet in front of her. Up close, he was even more terrifying. Even more beautiful. The scent of him washed over her like a wave. Pine and winter frost and something else. Something that made her skin prickle and her pulse race and her mind go fuzzy at the edges. The tray slipped an inch in her grip. Wine sloshed over the rim of a goblet and splashed onto the floor. No one moved. No one spoke. The entire pack watched with wide eyes and held breath. And then Alpha King Deva, the most powerful shifter in 6 territories, the warlord who brought armies to their knees, did something that shattered reality. He knelt. One knee hit the floor. Then his head bowed. Forgive them, Your Grace, he said, his voice rough and low and shaking with something that sounded like reverence. They did not know who you are. The tray fell from Aeliana's hands. Crystal shattered against stone. Wine exploded across the floor in a spray of dark red that looked like blood. The sound echoed through the silent hall like a crack of thunder. But no one looked at the mess. Every eye was locked on the Alpha King kneeling before a servant girl. Your Grace. Alpha Rendell's voice cracked. Your Majesty, I don't understand. She's nobody. She's wolfless. She's... Silence. The word didn't come from Deva's mouth. It came from something deeper. Something ancient and absolute that pressed down on every wolf in the room like a physical weight. Aeliana watched in horror as Alpha Rendell's jaw snapped shut mid-sentence. As warriors who'd never bowed to anyone in their lives dropped their eyes to the floor. As Saskia's face went pale, her perfectly painted lips parting in shock. The pressure in the air was suffocating. Aeliana's lungs burned. Her vision swam. What's happening? Why can't I breathe? Why does everyone look terrified? Deva rose slowly to his feet, but he didn't step back. Didn't give her space. He stood so close she could feel the heat radiating from his body, could see the pulse beating at his throat, could count the flecks of darker silver in those impossible pale eyes. What is your name? His voice was gentler now. Careful. Like he was speaking to something precious and breakable. Aeliana. Her own voice came out as barely a whisper. Aeliana of no bloodline. Something flickered across his face. Anger maybe. Or pain. His jaw tightened. Who told you that you have no bloodline? Everyone. The pack. I don't. I've never shifted. I don't have a wolf. I'm just. You are not just anything. Deva's hand lifted slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she couldn't, he touched her chin. Tilted her face up so she had no choice but to meet his eyes. The contact sent electricity racing down her spine. Tell me, Aeliana. Do you dream? The question was so unexpected it knocked her sideways. Dream. Of running. Of forests and mountains. Of a white wolf beneath a full moon. Aeliana's breath caught. How did he know? How could he possibly know about the dreams that woke her gasping in the dark, her skin slick with sweat and her heart racing like she'd been running for miles? Yes. But they're just dreams. Everyone dreams. Not like this. Dave's thumb brushed across her cheekbone, and Aeliana felt something inside her chest crack open. Something that had been locked away so long she'd forgotten it existed. Do you feel her now? Your wolf. Stirring. Waking. And oh goddess, she did. Deep inside, beneath layers of doubt and shame and years of being told she was nothing, something moved. Something vast and powerful and ancient that had been sleeping in chains. It lifted its head. And it recognized the male standing before her. Aeliana gasped. Her knees buckled. Dave caught her before she hit the floor, one arm banding around her waist, pulling her against his chest. Easy. I have you. His voice rumbled through her. You're safe. This isn't possible. Aeliana's hands had somehow ended up fisted in his shirt. I don't have a wolf. I've never had a wolf. Everyone knows. Everyone was lied to. Dave's eyes blazed as he looked over her head at Alpha Rendell. Or they lied to themselves because acknowledging the truth would have cost them everything. Alpha Rendell stood frozen at the head of the table, his face ashen. Your Majesty, I swear we had no idea. If we had known she was. If there was any indication. Any indication. Dave's voice dropped to something deadly. You had a white wolf royal living in your pack, sleeping in your storage shed, eating scraps, and you claim you had no indication? The words hit the room like an avalanche. White wolf. Royal. Impossible. The whispers started immediately, spreading through the gathered wolves like wildfire. White wolves were extinct. Gone for centuries. They were legends. Myths told to children. They were the rulers of rulers. The rarest bloodline ever born. So powerful that other alphas would submit on instinct alone, their wolves recognizing something greater than themselves. And Aeliana was supposed to be one of them. No, this is a mistake. I'm nobody. I'm worthless. Stop. Dave's hand cupped the back of her head, his fingers tangling in her filthy hair. Don't speak their poison. Don't claim their lies as truth. But I can't shift. I've never. Because you were sealed. Dave pulled back just enough to look at her face. Someone bound your wolf when you were a child. Wrapped her in spells so old and so strong that even I can barely sense them breaking now. They hid you, Aeliana. Someone tried to protect you. From what? From people who would kill to control you. From kings who would chain you and use your power to conquer territories. From wolves who would see you as a weapon instead of a woman. His expression softened. Your wolf wasn't missing. She was kept safe. Waiting until you were strong enough to carry her power. Aeliana's mind reeled. This couldn't be real. Any second now she would wake up on her pile of grain sacks and this would all be a fever dream brought on by hunger and exhaustion. But Dave's hands on her felt real. The warmth of his body felt real. And deep inside, that vast powerful thing that had started to wake was feeling more real with every passing second. A sound broke the silence. A laugh. Sharp and disbelieving. Saskia stood from her chair, her sapphires glittering in the candlelight. This is insane. You're telling us that girl, that pathetic Wolfless Runt, is supposed to be what? A white wolf queen. She laughed again, the sound edged with hysteria. Look at her. She's covered in filth. She can't even hold a tray without dropping it. She's Saskia. Alpha Rendell's warning came too late. Dave turned his head slowly to look at the Alpha's daughter. The temperature in the room plummeted. Saskia's laughter died in her throat. Kneel. The command rippled through the hall like a shockwave. Saskia's knees hit the floor before she could stop herself. Her face contorted with rage and humiliation as her own wolf betrayed her, forcing her body to submit to the absolute authority in that single word. She wasn't alone. Every wolf in the room dropped. Warriors. Nobles. Even Alpha Rendell swayed before catching himself on the edge of the table, his knuckles white with the effort of resisting. Only Aeliana remained standing, held upright by Dave's arm around her waist. You will never speak of her that way again. Dave's voice was soft. Deadly. Do you understand? Saskia's jaw worked. Her eyes blazed with hatred as they fixed on Aeliana, but she managed to choke out, "Yes, your majesty. All of you." Deva's gaze swept the room. "You will treat her with the respect owed to royalty. Because that is what she is, whether you have the eyes to see it or not." He turned back to Aeliana, and his expression transformed. The cold authority melted into something warmer. Something that made her heart stutter. "Come. We're leaving." His thumb traced her cheekbone again, wiping away a smudge of ash. "You don't belong in this place." "Leaving?" Panic spiked through her. "To where?" I can't just." "You can. You will." Deva glanced at Alpha Rendell. "I'm taking her to White Crest. She'll be under my protection until her wolf fully awakens and she understands what she is." Alpha Rendell looked like he'd aged 10 years in the last 5 minutes. "Of course, your majesty. Whatever you think is best. I don't need your permission." Deva's words cut like a blade. "I'm informing you as a courtesy. Nothing more." He guided Aeliana toward the door, his hand steady on her lower back. Her legs felt like water. Her mind was spinning so fast she couldn't catch a single coherent thought. This morning she'd been scrubbing floors. Tonight an Alpha King was telling her she was royalty and taking her away from the only home she'd ever known. A home that had treated her like garbage for 21 years. "Wait." The word burst from her lips before she could stop it. Deva paused, looking down at her with those impossible silver eyes. "My things. I need to get my things." Something painful flickered across his face. "What things, Aeliana?" She opened her mouth. Closed it. What did she own? A spare dress with more holes than fabric. A thin blanket that barely kept out the cold. A wooden comb missing half its teeth that she'd found in the trash 5 years ago. Nothing. She owned nothing. "Nothing worth taking," she whispered. Deva's hand tightened on her waist. "Then we leave now." They made it 3 steps before a voice called out. Sharp and familiar and dripping with contempt. "So that's it." Torin stood near the far end of the table, his amber eyes cold. "You're just going to leave with him? After everything?" Aeliana's stomach dropped. She hadn't even seen him there. Hadn't noticed him among the other warriors. After everything. Deva's voice went dangerously quiet. He turned slowly, and Aeliana felt the predator wake fully inside him. "What exactly do you mean by that?" Torin's confidence faltered, but pride kept him talking. He stepped forward, his chin lifted. "She was my mate. My fated mate. I had a right." Had. Deva's interruption cracked like a whip. Past tense. "Because you rejected her. In front of your entire pack. You severed a sacred bond because she wasn't wolf enough for your ambitions." The color drained from Torin's face. "I didn't. I couldn't have known. That she was royalty. That she was valuable." Deva's laugh was sharp and mirthless. "So you're admitting you would have kept the bond if you'd known what she was worth? That your loyalty was for sale to the highest bidder?" "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" Deva took a step toward him, and Torin actually backed up. "Did you mean that you regret throwing away the most precious gift the moon goddess could have given you? That you're a fool who couldn't see the treasure in front of you because it wasn't wrapped in silk and perfume?" Torin's hands clenched into fists. His wolf flashed in his eyes, amber turning to gold. "You can't just take her. She belongs to this pack. She belongs to no one." The words exploded through the hall with enough force to rattle the windows. Deva's power flooded the room, pressing down on every wolf until they struggled to breathe. "She is not property. Not a possession to be claimed or discarded based on your greed." He turned back to Aeliana, and his voice gentled again. The contrast was staggering. "Unless you want to stay, I won't force you to come with me. If you want to remain here, I'll respect that choice." Aeliana looked around the hall. At the wolves kneeling on the floor who had tormented her for years. At Saskia whose eyes promised murder. At Torin who had shattered her heart 3 nights ago and now looked at her like she was gold he'd thrown away. At the pack house that had been her prison. And she thought about the storage shed. The grain sacks. The endless cold and hunger and loneliness. "I want to leave. Her voice came out stronger than she expected. I want to go with you. Something blazed in Dava's eyes. Relief. Triumph. Something deeper that made heat pool in her stomach. Then we go. He held out his hand. Aeliana took it. His fingers closed around hers, warm and strong and steady. And for the first time in her entire life, Aeliana felt safe. They walked out of the great hall together, leaving the shocked pack behind. Dava's warriors fell into formation around them as they crossed the courtyard. Four massive males who moved like death on silent feet. A carriage waited beyond the gates. Black lacquered wood with silver trim that gleamed in the moonlight. The horses were the size of small mountains. Dava helped her inside, his hands careful on her waist. The interior was lined with soft velvet. There were cushions and blankets and more luxury than Aeliana had seen in her entire life. She sat down and her legs finally gave out. Everything that had just happened crashed over her like a wave. The carriage lurched into motion, and Aeliana pressed her back against the velvet seat, trying to ground herself in something real. Trying to make sense of the impossible. Dava sat across from her, his long legs taking up most of the space. He'd been quiet since they left, just watching her with those silver eyes that seemed to see straight through to her bones. You're in shock. His voice was gentle. That's normal. Your entire world just changed in the span of minutes. Aeliana's laugh came out broken. That's one way to put it. This morning I was nobody. Tonight you're telling me I'm supposed to be. What exactly? She met his gaze. What is a white wolf? Really? Dava leaned forward, elbows on his knees. May I? He gestured to the seat beside her. She nodded, and he moved across the carriage, settling next to her but careful to leave space between them. Close enough that she could feel his warmth. Far enough that she didn't feel trapped. White wolves are the original bloodline. The first wolves blessed directly by the moon goddess herself. He spoke quietly, like he was telling her a sacred story. They weren't just stronger or faster. They were different. They could command other wolves with their voice alone. Could heal with their touch. Could sense lies and see through deception. That sounds like a fairy tale. It would, if you'd never met one. Dava's smile was sad. They ruled the shifter world for thousands of years. Not through conquest, but through respect. Other wolves followed them willingly because white wolves led with wisdom and compassion. They protected the weak. Stopped wars before they started. Kept the balance. What happened to them? Power always attracts darkness. Dava's jaw tightened. A faction of alphas decided they didn't want to bow to anyone, no matter how wise or just. They wanted to rule through strength alone. Through fear and dominance. So they hunted white wolves. Killed entire bloodlines. Destroyed anyone who carried even a trace of that sacred heritage. Aeliana's breath caught. All of them. We thought so. The last confirmed white wolf died 300 years ago. Since then, there have been rumors. Whispers of hidden bloodlines kept secret to protect them. But nothing proven. She looked at him. Until tonight. Until I walked into that hall and felt your presence even through the binding spells. How? How could you feel something even I didn't know existed? Because my bloodline is old too. Not as rare as yours, but ancient enough to recognize power when it's near. Dava's hand moved slowly toward hers, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his fingers closed gently around hers. The moment I caught your scent, my wolf knew. It bowed because that's what we were made to do in the presence of white wolf royalty. It's instinct. Recognition of something greater. Aeliana stared at their joined hands. His was so much larger than hers, scarred and strong. Hers was small and filthy, still stained with blood and soap from scrubbing floors. I don't feel powerful. I feel terrified. That's because you've spent your whole life being told you're worthless. Dava's thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. But your wolf knows different. She's been waiting. Getting stronger. And now that the bindings are cracking, she'll wake fully. When? Days. Maybe weeks. It depends on how strong the original spell was. His expression turned serious. And Aeliana, when she wakes, everything will change. You'll feel her power. You'll be able to shift. And every dominant wolf within 100 miles will sense what you are. Is that why you said war is coming? Deva was quiet for a long moment. Yes. When word spreads that a white wolf has been found, other alphas will come. Some will want to swear loyalty. Others will want to control you, use your power for their own gain. And some, he met her eyes, will want you dead because they fear what you represent. A return to the old ways. A challenge to their authority. Fear iced through her veins. So I'm in danger. Not while I breathe. The words came out like a vow. I brought you to White Crest because it's the most fortified territory in the realm. My warriors are the best trained. My borders are unbreachable. And I, his hand tightened on hers, will stand between you and anything that tries to harm you. Why? The question burst out before she could stop it. Why do you care? You don't even know me. Something raw flickered across Deva's face. Because you deserve to be protected. Because you've suffered enough. Because, he hesitated, then continued quietly, when my wolf recognized yours, something else happened too. What? The fated bond snapped into place. Aeliana's heart stopped. What? You're my mate, Aeliana. My true mate. Deva's silver eyes burned into hers. I felt it the moment I saw you. The pull. The recognition. The absolute certainty that you were made for me and I was made for you. No. Aeliana pulled her hand back, panic clawing up her throat. No, that's not possible. I already had a fated mate. Torin. The bond broke when he rejected me. You can't have two. You can't have two at the same time. Deva's voice was patient. But your bond with Torin is severed. Dead. And the moon goddess doesn't make mistakes, Aeliana. She gave you a second chance. A true mate who won't reject you. Who will cherish you the way you should have been cherished all along. Tears burned her eyes. This is too much. All of this. I can't, I don't. Hey. Deva's hand cupped her face, gentle and warm. Breathe. You don't have to accept the bond right now. You don't have to do anything except rest and let yourself heal. I'm not Torin. I won't push. I won't demand. His thumb brushed away a tear that had escaped. I'll wait as long as you need. And if I never accept it. Pain flashed in his eyes, but his voice stayed steady. Then I'll still protect you. Still give you a home. Still make sure you're safe and cared for. The bond doesn't change my duty to you. The carriage rolled through the night, and Aeliana watched the world pass by through the window. They'd left Bloodfang territory an hour ago, climbing into mountains she'd only ever seen from a distance. The moon was full overhead, casting everything in silver light. She could feel Deva watching her. Patient. Waiting. Tell me about White Crest. She needed to talk about something, anything, other than fated bonds and power she didn't understand. What's it like? Safe. Deva shifted slightly, giving her more space. It's built into the mountains. Natural defenses on 3 sides. The pack house is more of a fortress, but I've tried to make it comfortable. Warm. There are gardens and training grounds and a library that, he smiled slightly, you might like. If you enjoy reading. I don't know. Aeliana's voice came out small. I was never taught. The smile vanished. They didn't teach you to read. Runts don't need education. That's what Beta Garon always said. I was meant for scrubbing floors and serving food. Nothing else. Deva's hands clenched into fists on his knees. His power rippled through the carriage, making the air thick. How long, Aeliana? How long did they treat you that way? Since I was 6. That's when it became clear I wasn't going to shift like the other children. After that, everything changed. Her throat tightened with old pain. My parents stopped looking at me. The pack stopped saying my name. I became the runt. The shame. The reminder that sometimes the moon goddess makes mistakes. She doesn't. Deva's voice was rough. They made the mistake. They looked at a child who needed help and chose cruelty instead. He turned to face her fully. Aeliana, I need you to understand something. What they did to you wasn't your fault. Their blindness. Their abuse. None of it was because you deserved it. Then why? Her voice cracked. Why did it happen? If I'm supposed to be this powerful white wolf, why was I left to suffer for 15 years? I don't know. Deva's honesty was somehow more comforting than false promises would have been. Maybe whoever placed the binding spells died before they could tell anyone the truth. Maybe they were trying to protect you and something went wrong. But Aeliana, your suffering doesn't mean you're worthless. It means the people who should have protected you failed. The tears came then. Hot and fast and unstoppable. All the years of swallowing her pain, of pretending it didn't hurt, of telling herself she was fine, came pouring out in gasping sobs that shook her entire body. Deva made a low sound in his throat. Can I hold you? She nodded, and then his arms were around her, pulling her against his chest. He was so warm. So solid. One hand cradled the back of her head while the other wrapped around her waist, and for the first time in 15 years, Aeliana wasn't alone in her grief. She cried until there was nothing left. Until her throat was raw and her eyes burned and exhaustion dragged at her bones. Deva held her through all of it. Never pulling away. Never telling her to stop. Just a steady presence in the darkness. When the tears finally slowed, Aeliana realized she'd soaked the front of his shirt. I'm sorry. I got you all wet. Don't be sorry. Deva's hand moved in slow circles on her back. You needed to cry. You've probably needed to cry for years. She had. But there had never been anyone safe enough to cry with. Aeliana pulled back slightly to look at his face. Why are you being so kind to me? Because you deserve kindness. His silver eyes held hers. And because when I look at you, I don't see a runt or a servant or someone weak. I see a woman who survived 15 years of abuse and didn't let it destroy her compassion. Who still has softness in her despite the cruelty she's endured. His hand came up to cup her face. That's not weakness, Aeliana. That's strength. Something warm bloomed in her chest. Something dangerous that felt like hope. The carriage began to slow. Deva glanced out the window and his expression shifted. We're here. Aeliana looked out and her breath caught. White crest rose from the mountainside like something out of a dream. Stone towers reached toward the sky, their tops crowned with silver that gleamed in the moonlight. Walls thick enough to withstand a siege surrounded the inner keep. And everywhere, lights. Warm golden lights that turned the fortress into something magical. It's beautiful. Wait until you see it in daylight. Deva smiled. The gardens are even better in the sun. The carriage rolled through massive gates that closed behind them with a heavy thud. Warriors lined the courtyard, standing at attention. But their eyes tracked to Aeliana with curiosity rather than contempt. They know what I am. They know you're under my protection. That's all they need to know for now. Deva stepped out first, then turned to help her down. Aeliana's legs nearly gave out when her feet hit the ground. The journey, the crying, the sheer weight of everything that had happened, crashed over her all at once. Deva caught her before she fell. Easy. He swept her up into his arms like she weighed nothing. You're exhausted. Let's get you inside. I can walk. You've been through enough tonight. Let me help you. His voice dropped lower. Please. She was too tired to argue. Too tired to do anything except rest her head against his shoulder as he carried her up the stone steps and through towering doors. The interior was warm. Soft rugs covered stone floors. Tapestries hung on the walls depicting forests and mountains and wolves running beneath the moon. And everywhere, that scent. Pine and winter frost and home. Deva carried her up a winding staircase and down a corridor lined with doors. He stopped at the last one and pushed it open with his shoulder. The room beyond was larger than the entire storage shed she'd been living in. A massive bed dominated one wall, piled high with furs and blankets. A fireplace crackled with fresh flames. And through another door, she could see a bathing room with a tub the size of a small pool. This is yours. Deva set her gently on the bed. Aeliana stared at the room, unable to process what she was seeing. The bed alone was bigger than any space she'd ever called her own. The furs looked soft enough to sink into. And was that actual hot water she could hear running in the bathing room? This can't be for me. Her voice came out hoarse. This is too much. It's not enough. Deva crouched in front of her so they were eye level. But it's a start. He gestured to the bathing room. There's hot water, soaps, everything you need to wash. Take as long as you want. And when you're done, there are clean clothes in the wardrobe. They might be too big, but we'll have proper things made for you tomorrow. Aeliana's hands twisted in her filthy dress. I don't know how to, I've never had a proper bath before. Just cold water from a bucket. Something painful crossed David's face. Then let me help. Not, he added quickly when panic flashed through her, not in the bath. But I can show you how everything works. Make sure the water temperature is right. Then I'll leave you in privacy. She nodded because she didn't trust her voice. David led her into the bathing room and Aeliana's breath caught. The tub was already half full, steam rising from water that looked like liquid silk. Glass bottles lined a shelf, each one filled with different colored soaps and oils. This is the temperature control. David showed her a brass handle. Turn it this way for hotter, this way for cooler. These are soaps. He picked up a blue bottle. This one is for hair. The green is for skin. And this, he held up a small amber bottle, is oil for after. It will help with any soreness or aching muscles. He set everything within easy reach, then straightened. I'll be right outside the door. If you need anything at all, just call. I'll hear you. David. The word stopped him at the doorway. He turned back, silver eyes patient. Why are you doing all this? Really? Because someone should have done it years ago. His voice was quiet. Because you matter, Aeliana. You've always mattered. And I'm going to spend however long it takes making sure you believe that. He closed the door softly behind him. Aeliana stood alone in the bathing room, staring at the tub of hot water like it might disappear if she looked away. Slowly, she peeled off her filthy dress, wincing as dried blood and fabric stuck to old bruises. The water was perfect. Hot enough to make her gasp when she first stepped in, but not scalding. She sank down until it covered her shoulders, and a sound escaped her throat that was half sob, half moan of relief. When was the last time she'd been warm? Truly warm, all the way through? She couldn't remember. The blue soap smelled like summer rain. It lathered in her hands, turning the water cloudy as 15 years of dirt and shame washed away. She scrubbed until her skin was pink and raw and clean. Her hair was worse. Tangled and matted and full of things she didn't want to identify. It took 3 washings before the water ran clear. By the time she was done, the bath looked like she'd bathed in mud. But she felt lighter. Cleaner. Almost like a different person. Aeliana dried off with a towel softer than anything she'd ever touched and wrapped herself in a robe hanging on a hook. When she stepped back into the bedroom, she found David standing by the window, looking out at the mountains. He turned when he heard her, and something blazed in his silver eyes before he controlled it. Better. So much better. Aeliana pulled the robe tighter. Thank you. The wardrobe has clothes. Help yourself to anything. He moved toward the door. I'll let you rest now. You've had an overwhelming night. Wait. The word burst out before she could stop it. Where will you be? My chambers are down the hall. 3rd door on the right. David's hand rested on the doorframe. But if you need me sooner, there's a bell pull by the bed. Ring it and I'll come. Will you? She hesitated, struggling with the question. Will you stay? Just until I fall asleep. I don't want to be alone right now. The raw vulnerability in those words made David's expression soften. Of course. Where would you like me? Aeliana pointed to a chair near the fireplace. There is fine. She went to the wardrobe and found a nightgown. It was too big, hanging off her shoulders and pooling at her feet, but it was clean and soft and hers. She climbed into the massive bed, burrowing under furs that smelled like pine and winter. David settled into the chair, his large frame making the furniture look small. He didn't speak. Didn't push. Just sat there, a solid presence in the firelight. David. Aeliana's voice was muffled by blankets. Yes. In the carriage, you said your wolf recognized mine. What did that feel like? He was quiet for a moment. Like finding something I'd been searching for my entire life without knowing I was searching. Like coming home after being lost in the wilderness. He met her eyes across the room. Like the world suddenly made sense. Aeliana's heart squeezed. And you're really willing to wait? For me to accept the bond? Even if I never do. I told you I would. Deva's voice was steady. I meant it. But don't you want, she struggled with the words, don't you want a mate who wants you back right away? Someone who isn't broken. You're not broken. The words came out sharp. Damaged, maybe. Hurt, definitely. But not broken. And Aeliana, his eyes burned into hers, I don't want just any mate. I want you. Scarred and scared and still learning to trust. I want all of you, exactly as you are. I'll wait 50 years if that's what you need. Something cracked in Aeliana's chest. Something that had been frozen solid since Turin rejected her. Since long before that, really. I'm afraid. Of what? Deva's voice was gentle. Everything. Aeliana pulled the furs up to her chin. I'm afraid this is a dream and I'll wake up back in the storage shed. I'm afraid my wolf won't wake up and you'll realize you made a mistake. I'm afraid that even if she does wake up, I won't know how to be what everyone expects. She met his eyes. And I'm afraid of the bond. Of trusting someone again after what Turin did. Those are all reasonable fears. Deva leaned forward, elbows on his knees. So let me address them one by one. First, this isn't a dream. You're really here, really safe, and nothing is going to send you back to that place. Second, I didn't make a mistake. Your wolf will wake when she's ready, and even if something went wrong and she didn't, you'd still be welcome here. Still be under my protection. What about being a white wolf? What if I can't live up to what that means? Then we'll figure it out together. Deva's smile was soft. Aeliana, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to know everything immediately. You just have to be willing to try. And as for the bond, he held her gaze, I meant what I said. I'll wait. I'll earn your trust one day at a time. And if you decide you can't accept it, I'll respect that choice even though it would break something in me. The raw honesty in his words made her chest tight. Can I ask you something? She twisted her fingers in the blanket. Why haven't you taken a mate before now? You're a king. You must have had hundreds of options. Thousands. Probably. Deva's laugh was rueful. And none of them felt right. I've been waiting for my fated mate since I was old enough to understand what that meant. Refused every political match, every arranged marriage, every beautiful female who threw herself at me. He shook his head. My counsel thought I was insane. But I knew she was out there somewhere. I just had to be patient. And you think I'm her. Even though she gestured at herself, this? Especially because you're this. Deva stood and crossed to the bed, sitting carefully on the edge. You want to know what I see when I look at you. Not a wolfless runt. Not someone weak or broken. I see a woman who survived years of abuse without losing her kindness. Who still has hope even after having her heart shattered. Who's brave enough to leave everything she's ever known and trust a stranger to keep her safe. I don't feel brave. The bravest people never do. His hand reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his fingers brushed a strand of damp hair from her face. They just keep moving forward even when they're terrified. That's what courage is, Aeliana. Her eyes stung with fresh tears. Why do you keep saying things that make me want to believe you? Because they're true. And because you deserve to hear them. Deva's thumb traced her cheekbone. You've spent so long hearing lies about yourself that truth feels foreign. But I'm going to keep saying it until you believe it. Aeliana's breath hitched. She could feel the bond, even though she hadn't accepted it. A golden thread stretching between them, humming with potential. With promise. It was nothing like what she'd felt with Turin. That had been a shallow thing, easily broken. This felt deep. Ancient. Unbreakable. What happens now? Her voice came out whisper soft. Tomorrow and the days after. Tomorrow you rest. Deva's hand dropped from her face, and she immediately missed the warmth. Sleep as late as you want. Eat real food. Let yourself heal. Then, when you're ready, we'll start training. Training for what? For when your wolf wakes. You'll need to learn control. How to shift. How to use your power without hurting yourself or others. His expression turned serious. And we'll need to prepare for what's coming. Because word will spread, Aeliana. Other alphas will hear about you. And some of them won't be friendly. Fear spiked through her. What if I can't protect myself? What if I'm not strong enough? Then I'll protect you. Deva's voice turned to steel. And my warriors will protect you. And your own power will protect you once it fully wakes. You won't face this alone. I promise you that. The certainty in his words wrapped around her like armor. You should sleep now. Deva stood. You're exhausted, and your body needs rest to heal. Will you really stay? Until I fall asleep. I will. He returned to the chair by the fire. Close your eyes, Aeliana. I'll be right here. She burrowed deeper into the furs, her body finally relaxing for the first time in longer than she could remember. The bed was soft. The room was warm. And Deva was there, solid and real and safe. Her eyes drifted closed. She was almost asleep when she felt it. A stirring deep inside. Stronger than before. More present. Her wolf, stretching like she'd been asleep for a very long time. And with that stirring came something else. A whisper of power. Ancient and vast and patient. It curled around her consciousness like smoke, protective and fierce. Mine, it seemed to say. Pack. Safe. Home. And for the first time since she was 6 years old, Aeliana believed it might be true. She fell asleep with tears on her cheeks and a smile on her lips, while the Alpha King kept watch over her through the night. Standing guard against the darkness. Waiting for the dawn when everything would change. Waiting for his queen to wake. Outside, the moon hung full and bright over White Crest. And deep in the mountains, wolves began to howl. Not in challenge or threat, but in recognition. Something old was stirring. Something powerful was waking. And the shifter world would never be the same. Aeliana woke to sunlight streaming through windows she didn't recognize. For a heartbeat, panic seized her. Then the softness of the bed registered. The warmth of the furs. The clean smell of her own skin. White Crest. She was at White Crest. She was safe. A soft knock sounded at the door. Aeliana. Deva's voice. Deep and steady and somehow comforting even through wood. Come in. The door opened and he entered carrying a tray laden with food. More food than she'd seen in months. Fresh bread still steaming. Eggs cooked with herbs. Fruit that looked like jewels. Cheese and honey and things she didn't even have names for. I thought you might be hungry. Deva set the tray on the bed beside her. How did you sleep? Better than I have in years. Aeliana stared at the food, her stomach cramping with sudden hunger. Is this all for me? All for you. Eat as much or as little as you want. There's no rush. No one will take it from you. The promise in those words made her throat tight. She reached for the bread with shaking hands, tearing off a piece and bringing it to her mouth. The taste exploded on her tongue. Warm and buttery and perfect. She ate slowly at first, then faster as her body remembered what real food tasted like. Deva sat in the chair by the window, giving her space but staying close. Not watching her like she was an oddity. Just present. Steady. When she'd eaten until her stomach was pleasantly full, she set down the tray and looked at him. What now? Now, Deva stood and moved to the wardrobe. I'd like to show you White Crest. Introduce you to some people. But only if you're ready. We can stay here if you prefer. No. Aeliana pushed back the furs. I want to see it. I want to, she hesitated. I want to start learning how to be who I'm supposed to be. Pride flashed across Deva's face. Then let's get you dressed. The wardrobe held dresses in soft fabrics. Simple but well made. Aeliana chose a deep green that reminded her of forests she'd only dreamed about. It fit better than the nightgown had, though it was still slightly too large. When she emerged from behind the changing screen, Deva's eyes darkened. Beautiful. Heat flooded her cheeks. She wasn't used to compliments. Didn't know how to accept them. He offered his arm. Ready. They walked through White Crest together, and everywhere they went, wolves stopped to stare. But not with contempt. With curiosity. With respect. Warriors bowed their heads as they passed. Servants smiled. Deva introduced her to his beater, a grizzled male named Rowan with kind eyes and scars that told stories. To his head warrior, a a female named Valkyra who looked like she could tear through steel with her bare hands. To the pack healer, an elderly woman named Sabella who took one look at Aeliana and pulled her into a hug that smelled like herbs and safety. "Welcome home, child." Sabella's voice was warm. "We've been waiting for you." "You have?" "Oh yes." Sabella's eyes twinkled. "Some of us can read signs. We knew a white wolf would come. We just didn't know when." They walked through gardens that took Aeliana's breath away. Through training grounds where warriors practiced with deadly grace. Through a library so vast she couldn't see the end of it. And with each step, she felt something inside her grow stronger. Her wolf was waking. It happened in the garden, surrounded by flowers and sunlight and the sound of a fountain bubbling nearby. Aeliana gasped as power surged through her. Not painful. Not frightening. Just immense. Ancient. Right. Deva was at her side instantly. "Talk to me. What do you feel?" "Her." Aeliana's voice shook. "I feel her. My wolf. Oh goddess, she's so strong. Let her come." Deva's hand found hers. "Don't fight it. Let her wake fully." The bindings shattered like glass. Power exploded through Aeliana's body. Her bones shifted. Her skin rippled. And then she was falling, but Deva caught her, lowering her gently to the grass. The shift took her like a storm. When it was over, Aeliana stood on 4 legs instead of 2. Her vision was sharper. Her hearing clearer. She could smell everything. Pine and flowers and earth and Deva's scent, stronger now, calling to something primal inside her. She looked down at her paws and froze. They were white. Pure white, like fresh snow under moonlight. "Aeliana." Deva's voice was rough with emotion. "Look at you. You're magnificent." She turned her head and caught sight of herself in the fountain's reflection. A massive white wolf stared back. Silver eyes that matched Deva's. A coat that seemed to glow in the sunlight. Power radiating from every inch of her. This was her. This was who she'd always been, hidden under spells and lies. The wolf inside her stretched, testing this new freedom. And then she felt it. The command. The absolute authority that came with being a white wolf. She could feel every wolf in White Crest. Could sense their positions. Their emotions. Their instinctive recognition of her as something greater. And they were bowing. Every single one of them. Warriors in the training grounds. Servants in the pack house. Even Rowan and Valkyra, dropping to their knees in the garden. All except Deva. He stood before her, silver eyes bright with pride and something deeper. Something that made her wolf purr with recognition. "Mate," her wolf whispered. "Ours. Chosen. True." And this time, Aeliana didn't fight it. Didn't doubt. She let the bond snap fully into place, that golden thread becoming steel and silk, an unbreakable promise. Deva sucked in a sharp breath. His hand went to his chest. "You accepted it." Aeliana shifted back, the transformation easier this time. She stood before him, whole and powerful and finally sure. "I accept you." Her voice was steady. "I accept the bond. I accept," she gestured at herself, "all of this. What I am. What we could be together." Deva closed the distance between them in 2 strides, his hands cupping her face like she was something precious beyond measure. "Are you sure? You don't have to rush this. We have time." "I'm sure." Aeliana's hands came up to rest on his chest, feeling his heart thundering beneath her palms. "For the first time in my life, I'm completely sure about something. You've shown me nothing but kindness, patience, respect. You've given me safety and a home and the space to find myself." Her eyes burned with tears, but they were good tears. Happy tears. "How could I not choose you?" "Aeliana." Her name on his lips sounded like a prayer. Like a promise. Like everything she'd ever wanted to hear. He kissed her then. Soft and reverent and full of a tenderness that made her knees weak. The bond blazed between them, golden and perfect and right. She felt his wolf reach for hers, and when they touched, it was like lightning and starlight and coming home all at once. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Deva rested his forehead against hers. "My queen. My mate. My Aeliana. My Deva." The words felt natural on her tongue, like they'd always belonged there. Around them, the pack began to cheer. Warriors who'd been kneeling rose to their feet, their faces bright with joy. Valkyra was grinning. Rowan was wiping his eyes like he wasn't crying. Even Sibella was clapping her hands together in delight. This was family. This was pack. This was everything she'd been denied for so long, finally within reach. The next weeks passed in a blur of training and learning and growing into her power. Aeliana discovered she could heal with her touch, mending wounds that would have taken days to recover in mere minutes. She learned to command other wolves with her voice, though she used the power sparingly, with wisdom and compassion. She studied history and politics and strategy, preparing for the challenges she knew would come. And they did come. Alphas from distant territories arrived, some to pledge loyalty, others to test her strength. Aeliana met each one with grace and power, with Deva steady at her side. Together, they turned away threats before they became wars. Forged alliances that would reshape the shifter world. Built something new on the foundation of something ancient. Word of her rejection at Bloodfang spread too. The story of the Wolfless Runt who became a white wolf queen captured hearts across the territories. Packs began to look at their own outcasts differently. To question whether weakness might be hidden strength. To remember that the moon goddess rarely made mistakes. 3 months after Aeliana's arrival at White Crest, a messenger came from Bloodfang. Alpha Rendell requested an audience. He wanted to apologize. To make amends. Aeliana stood in the throne room, wearing a gown of silver and white, a crown of moonstone on her head. Deva sat beside her, his hand linked with hers. And when Alpha Rendell entered and dropped to his knees, she felt nothing but pity. I cannot undo what was done to you. Rendell's voice shook. I failed you. The pack failed you. We were blind and cruel, and no apology can erase 15 years of suffering. No, it can't. Aeliana's voice was steady. But I can choose to forgive anyway. Not because you deserve it. Because I deserve peace. Rendell's head bowed lower. Thank you, Your Grace. However, Aeliana stood, and every wolf in the room felt her power wash over them. I want changes at Bloodfang. No more outcasts sleeping in storage sheds. No more children going hungry because they're different. You will treat every member of your pack with dignity and respect, or you will answer to me. Do you understand? Yes, Your Grace. I swear it. Good. Then you may go. After Rendell left, Deva pulled her into his arms. You're extraordinary. You know that. I'm learning. Aeliana smiled up at him. Thanks to you. No. Thanks to you. All I did was see what was already there. You did the hard work of becoming who you were meant to be. That night, they stood on the balcony of their shared chambers, looking out over White Crest. The territory had become truly hers now. These wolves were her pack. This land was her home. And the male beside her was her forever. Do you ever miss it? Deva asked quietly. Bloodfang, I mean. Despite everything? No. Aeliana leaned into his warmth. That place was a prison. This is freedom. This is where I was always meant to be. With me. With you. She turned in his arms, rising on her toes to kiss him. Always with you. The moon rose full and bright overhead, and somewhere in the distance, wolves began to howl. Not in mourning or challenge, but in celebration. In recognition of their queen. In joy for the future she would build. Aeliana had been called worthless. Broken. A mistake. The wolfless runt who would never amount to anything. But she'd proven them all wrong. She was a white wolf. A queen. A force of nature wrapped in compassion and strength. She was loved and cherished and finally home. And as Deva held her close and whispered promises against her skin, as their bond blazed bright between them, Aeliana knew one truth with absolute certainty. She had never been worthless. She had always been exactly who she was meant to be. She just needed the right person to help her remember. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey today, beautiful souls. I hope Aeliana's story touched your heart the way it touched mine. Remember, you are never what others say you are. You are what you know yourself to be in your deepest heart. And sometimes, All it takes is one person who truly sees you to change everything. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button, leave a comment telling me what you thought, and subscribe if you haven't already. I've got so many more amazing tales coming your way. Until next time, keep believing in your own magic. See you soon.